Welcome back to the podcast, the Elevated Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Raylan Davis, and welcome. Today I have two amazing guests, my husband and wife duo, Amy and Joseph of Market Leader Solutions and Market Leader Recruiting. And today we're going to talk a little bit about, everything. First and foremost, thank you for joining the podcast. Appreciate you guys.
Great to be here.
Thank you.
Okay, so first thing, we were kind of discussing this before we hit the record button, but one of the things I want to talk to you guys about today was about recruiting, because for me, what happens is I think the struggle of scaling your business. There's a lot of like digital entrepreneurs that listen to this podcast, and they're solopreneurs, and you get to a point where it's almost like I was here too, where I was thinking to myself, I don't know if I want to scale because the hassle of more people. And then you get in this thing and you like justify it. You almost justify it to yourself. Like, I'm not going to scale because I don't want to deal with the hassle, but you're putting a limiting, like a limit on how far you can go. And then for me, I was like, no, screw that. Like, let's do it. And so I got somewhat lucky when I was designing what I was doing that I already knew people that could do the job. But when you get to a certain level, you got to start actually getting employees. Like, not people you partner with. I'm talking employees. And this is where you guys come in. So I guess maybe give us a little bit background of what you do for some of these corporations, and then we can kind of dive into when do you start thinking about, recruiting, like for your company.
Well, you probably want to start with where we started with Market Leader Solutions and how it kind of evolved. So why don't you take that?
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of our clients, I mean, they've been in business for a very, very long time as it is. Although actually one of them is pretty new.
Yeah.
Like only a year and a half, 2 years old.
I know this is hard for you, Joseph, but you gotta speak up. Or come closer to the mic, one of the two.
Sorry, man. All right. Yeah. So I mean, it is a difficult decision to make. How did we get into it? I mean, just good, honest relations with our client base, and they trust me. They trust me enough to say, "Can you help with this?" One of the things that I'm pretty well convinced that distinguishes us from others is the level of objectivity that we bring to the table. Because most people, right, even though I run into CEOs all the time, and they're like, "Oh, I know people, yeah." Except whenever that one is in front of you that you're trying to recruit, you get subjective, which means that there's all kinds of crap happening right in front of your face you're not even seeing, right? And
like the red flags in like a relationship or something. Like you see it, but you don't want to see it.
Well, exactly. And I've actually demonstrated that for clients in the past. They're like, "Look, this is what they just did right in front of you," right? But it's the fact that we can cut through that and see what's really real, and does somebody have the actual talent and competency to do the job? Because otherwise it's a pain in the butt, and it will be something that you regret, and you go back to square one, which is, crap, I'm just going to work here by myself and not hire anybody else.
Yeah, and it's definitely a pain point. And again, it's like, this is where it's a learn. I never thought I'd have this problem, but that objectivity is important. And here's where, and it hasn't bit me in the butt yet, but I'm sure it will. There's plenty of time. But what I do is I go, you have a skill set, and I could see you doing really good work for me, and I take a personal, like a personal investment into people, and I go, I want to see you grow, and I want to be there with you, whatever, which I don't think is inherently bad. However, what happens is that clouds the skill sometimes. So if you fuck up, I'll give you 15 chances. And so we actually did something recently, and maybe you guys can tell me if this is a good job or this is a good thing or not. But we had to start setting up things where when we bring on new people, I don't get to know them. And the reason we did that is so that I don't get too close and I start making excuses. Does that make me crazy? Like, I feel like, I don't know. Like, I feel like it's just something that I had to start to develop because, again, if I care about you, like, I will spend hours training you. I will spend hours coaching you. Problem is, I don't have that time right now.
Right.
That's probably the worst thing we like to hear from our clients is, "Ooh, I really like this candidate."
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good point.
That's a terrible thing, right? Because that like is actually emotionally based. right? And once you go through that emotion, it's very, very difficult to rewind that.
Yeah. So for you guys, how do you get so objective? Well, first of all, how do you not get like emotional invested into the people you end up hiring? Like, how do you guys set it up to where you're making sure you're hiring for the skill, and also maybe talk to me a little bit about like, again, because you're hiring for the skill they have now. Because again, one of the things that I learned from like mentors of mine that are in my space, they talk about people that are preloaded with solutions. Like, don't hire people you got to train. Hire people that come preloaded with solutions, and then you can train them up. How do you figure out if they're full of shit or not, and if they got the skill or not? How do you figure out do they have the skill now, and can they grow in that position as well?
Well, believe it or not, we don't actually hire for skill. We get more for talent. What they actually have the capability to do, the potential to do. Um, Skills can be taught. And, granted, there are some things that they absolutely have. You can't put somebody into a position like as a doctor that doesn't have the schooling and some experience. But most positions, yeah, it's not about the skill, it's about that talent.
Let me ask you a question, Raylan.
Yeah.
Have you ever learned something the wrong way? We were talking about jiu-jitsu. You just got back into jiu-jitsu. Have you ever learned that the wrong way from
Absolutely.
another instructor?
Yeah.
Okay. So what if you're hiring somebody, that has a predetermined skill set or pre-wired skill set, however you want to refer to it, except it was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the Raylan way. Let's just say it that way. Yeah. Now what do you have? You actually have somebody who can talk the talk, right? Except whenever it comes to doing it your way, to your standards, there's going to be something that's hidden down way beneath the surface, right? That you're going to get surprised. It's not a good surprise, by the way.
So then talk to me a little bit about like what's the difference between talent and skill, because that's interesting. What's the difference between talent and skill?
Sure. So talent is an innate ability to perform in a given role, and I mean it can involve anything from well, I'll tell you three talents right off the top of my head. There's the thinking talent, right? The one that puts things together and has them make sense. There's the doing talent, people who are just really, really individual contributors, right? They're fantastic at the doing talent. And then there's the relating talent, right? In some roles, it's fun. Okay, so sorry about all my stories, but
I love your stories, man.
the client that we talked about one time before that was hiring a CEO, the board of directors was adamant that they wanted somebody who was strategic, right? Now, whenever I think of strategic, I think of the thinking talent, right? Except I've worked with people who had fantastic, awesome titles, right? Who were very strategic. They could call shots 3 years out, except nobody on their team wanted to follow them, right? That thinking talent can actually kind of go against you at a certain point. So what I ended up convincing them to do was to go with someone that had the relating talent, right? Because they could find somebody who's strategic and raise them up to a whole new level of performance, right? Because they can relate. Am I saying that's the right answer in every single case? No. But I find often in leadership, if you've got somebody who's got that relating talent, they can develop the individual contributors and the thinkers all around them, right? And the other relators, right?
Yeah, no, I also love how you guys think about recruiting, because you think of it from like the whole. Meaning, like, I think you were talking about before, where it's like my gift, but also like it's a double-edged sword. Is I think very, I don't like saying it, but like high level. Like I think about how things connect, and I like playing up there. But the details, I literally in meetings, I am the one that's like, okay, what about this though? And I'm like, what about that? What if we did? Literally, I was in a meeting the other day, and the meeting was supposed to be working on copy. That was the objective. And me and this guy built a whole ass offer instead. Like, we just was like, oh, but what if we did? And we designed an entire offer. But I'm just not. I can't focus. So For me, it's like I need somebody that's really, really good in the details.
Yep.
Like, and if I don't have that, because to your point, again, I'm super honest on this podcast, by the way. And my biggest flaw right now in leadership is that I'm good at casting the vision. This is where we're headed. I'm good at saying, here's how we're going to get there, even to some degree. But the second you go, well, what do you think about this, Raylan? I'm like, nah, I'm gone. Like, I got to go over here now, right? And so it's so important. But I think the companies you work with, do you feel like they're pretty self-aware of, they know where they're missing? Because I talk to a lot of people, and I feel like they're not really that aware of, like, that piece of it.
No, definitely not at that level. And, can I use your own example there?
Yeah, of course.
Right. So you're the big picture thinker, right? And you're constantly like driving forward. Now, if you were interviewing somebody, right, who is really, really detail oriented, that person that you need, right, to follow through all the big picture stuff that you put out there, right, and run the ball across the line. If you were interviewing that person, chances are you would be bored with them at some point.
Yeah.
They're going to start asking detail-oriented questions or talking to you in detail of what they're going to do. And so initially, you're not going to like them.
Yeah.
Right? You realize that.
Yeah.
Except that's the person that you need.
Yeah. I literally have someone on my team like that right now. Like, that literally asked me every little nuanced question. I'm just like, I don't know. Go. Figure it out. Like, I don't know. Don't ask me these questions. Like, but the thing is, though, he's so damn good at what he does.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, do whatever, and I have to. It's also this interesting balance, though, I'm trying to figure out, and I don't know the answer to it, but there's this balance of, like, I really want my team to, like, experiment and, like, try things. Like, I told everybody, we've had this meeting tons of times, I go, look, if you mess something up, either for us or a client, I do not care so long as you messed it up because you were trying something new. Like, you were trying to innovate. You were trying to push the envelope. I'm there. But if you screw up because you just got lazy, that's when I get, like, really upset. Right. That's different, right? Versus, like, if things aren't performing, because, a perfect example, the thing, with marketing today, and especially with content, listen, man, the algorithm changes every other day. Like, it's so hard to keep up with. Like, there's so many things. And so what we do, which I think is a little bit different, is that we don't spend time trying to figure out the algorithm. We just try to go, how can, even if we only had 200 views, we had 200 eyes, how can we get those people to be the most engaged people ever? And go, this was really, really good. This really helped me, right? But in order to do that, though, we have to test a lot. And so what bothers me, if the same thing, if we get 200 views, but nobody's, like, saying this is good content, that's when I get upset. But if we get 200 views and they go, Raylan, we tried this spin on this, and this is why it's failing, I go, cool. Yeah. Because even if if you guys came to me and said, hey, it's not performing, I have no problem saying, yeah, and here's why. Because we're testing. Do you want to look like everybody else? No. Okay. We're fine then. If you do, then clearly I'm not the right, whatever. But if I have to come to you and go, it's not performing because we're just, we're not trying something, then I don't like that conversation, you know what I mean? So I think on the other side, though, because also, Joseph, you and I kind of hit it off because we come from a sales background. But we're not really salespeople, but, like, we are. Like, we're salespeople, but we also I don't think we like sales very much. Like, the historical salespeople. So, I guess, like, right now, what's going on in the sales industry? Because a lot of what you guys are doing in the recruitment space is, like, leadership in the sales kind of realm, right? So, what is your spin on finding the right salespeople? Because I've had some really bad sales leaders, but I've also had sales leaders that literally inspired me to want to, like, learn the craft of negotiating, learn the craft of people, right? So how do you find that kind of talent? Like, what is how do you, like, get the right people in that space? Because, listen, it's my humble opinion that sales leadership is probably the most important next to the CEO. And I don't know anybody else that can tell me differently. So how do you find good talent and weed out the bullshit? Because there's a lot of it in sales. Come on, let's be honest.
No, there's a lot. Actually, I wanted to comment on something that you said about the person that's on your team that just does a fantastic job, but, in the beginning was kind of like, man, you talk about details, you're kind of killing me here, dude. You had to get over yourself. This is actually a fundamental lesson that I think a lot of leaders don't really internalize. You had to get over Raylan, right, in order to realize that this kid has talent, that you need, right? So I'll go back to my days being in sales
Dude,
management.
well, first of all, like again, to your point, ego is one of those things that I battle with, and I think more than most. This is why it's my humble opinion that every entrepreneur should do jujitsu and do some
I don't
martial art
disagree. Sure.
where that because like listen, a perfect example is this. Again, I told you I just got back from jiu-jitsu. Joseph, like I'm pretty decent at what I do. Like I've been in combat sports for a long time, and I got choked out today. Like not unconscious, but I tapped. Okay, you cannot have an ego in jiu-jitsu because every
Right.
time you go to practice, someone's gonna either A, choke you unconscious, or B, put you in a position where you're like, oh, you could murder me if you wanted to. And
Yep.
again, it's not like that. Like everyone there is super friendly. But then I come to work, quote unquote, and you have that constant humility still lingering there, which is like, I don't know everything. And
Yeah.
there's an interesting thing where Mark Zuckerberg, he was on Joe Rogan, recently, and he started doing jiu-jitsu about a year ago. And he talked about, he was like, I don't know why I just found this. And he talked about exactly what we're talking about right now, the humility of it. Like,
Yeah.
there's no ego. You can't have ego. Because if you have ego, you also can get hurt, right? Like, if you can't be willing to admit, oh, I messed up, and tap, that's what tapping is. I screwed up, right? Like, you got me. And some people that have a strong ego in jiu-jitsu don't last because they get hurt, because they don't tap, right? So there's so many nuances between martial arts and entrepreneurship. So for me, ego, I have an ego. Like, I'm fully aware of it. And I think that is kind of my superpower because I'm willing to admit that I have one. And I
Yeah.
think about it a lot. Like, is that, am I pushing this person for me or for them? And then reconciling the two. And sometimes it's okay to push someone for yourself in your own, like, company, right? But also, if you do that all the time, then your people don't trust you. And so, anyway, I
Right.
think ego, if I had to say, I think every single entrepreneur should be doing jiu-jitsu today or some form of martial art,
Yeah, something that humbles them. I agree with that. So back before I got introduced to assessments, right? Because now I can see, many of those answers, like, at a, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I got it. But back in the day, this is kind of funny to me now, right? But it was painful at the time. What I found out is that as I was interviewing some of these salespeople, because all right, I'm a little different than you, right? I am wired to be, not just very task oriented,
Mhm.
right? I want to drive this thing forward, and I want to know the details on the way, right? Different from you.
Yeah, I'm a tree.
But whenever I would be
I'm
interviewing
floating
a-
around and following butterflies. That's what I do.
Yeah, exactly. So, but whenever I would be interviewing salespeople, there were two things that would happen. One, they often would use way too many words to answer a simple question, or they weren't answering the question that I asked, right? But the second thing that was happening, kind of below the surface, was that they were competing with my ego. And as a much younger man at that time, right, that was kind of a no-no. So what I found is that, if at about 45 minutes into the interview I wanted to reach across the table and choke the life out of that person, that was my guy. Right? He was going to be a superstar. Now, okay, so what did that mean? That meant that I had to get over me, right? I had to get over my own ego. I had to realize this person's value to the team was huge. It was going to be huge, right? And it turns out that, in many cases, that was the case, because, we doubled and tripled revenue in months. But what that basically also said is they have a completely different behavioral style than what I have.
Yeah.
Now, often we like people because of similar behavioral styles, right? So realize that whenever you're saying, I like this candidate, it's only because you've got similar behavioral styles.
Yeah.
But what if that's the wrong person for the role?
Which usually is probably the case. Like, again, for me, like, if I'm looking at a project manager or if I'm looking at, like, that's detail. I shouldn't like that person. Like, I just
Right.
should. And then I guess then for you, Amy, I'm not giving you nicknames. I'm just like,
That's
Amy. So, like, again, for you, like, I have two major questions for you. One,
Okay.
which is, like, on the recruitment side, are you like, I don't know, what positions do you enjoy recruiting for the most? I know we still, again, we're doing high level sales, etc. But do you have a position that like you feel like is like you're an expert in finding the right people?
Wow.
I know I ask really weird questions sometimes.
One of the ones that I personally enjoy, but it's not necessarily easy to fill, is administrative positions because that's where I came from.
Mm.
So they're kind of like my people.
Yeah.
um, but they can be pretty difficult to hire for because, again, they bring skills, but not always the talent. And I mean, we can run through dozens and dozens of people before we find that one that really, truly brings the talent and matches up with the team that they're going to be a part of.
What's like an administrative like position? Like what would you consider like a position like that? Are we talking like EAs or are we talking like more operations?
Well,
Like
the
when you
ones that
say
we've worked
administrative,
on,
what do you mean?
sure, the ones that we've worked on recently are like, front desk person for chiropractic or medical office. People that kind of run the show behind the scenes sometimes, but then also those front desk people.
Listen, if you guys ever get asked by someone like me for an EA, don't do it. Like finding an executive assistant, I feel like I think about the high level entrepreneur. They're very hard to work with, like
Yeah.
very hard. And listen, because poor Kayla, she does everything. She's the EA. She also does a little bit of project management. She also, because like we have like 3 different things we're bouncing back and forth, and somehow she does it all. But like even working with me, like I don't know if I ever could hire an EA because of how great. Like every day it's something different, but like I hear horror stories of because Kayla before working in the company worked with other high level entrepreneurs, and it's just like it's chaos. Like it's every day something new. And when I talk to like some of these entrepreneurs, they're like, "Yeah, I'm going through like my 3rd EA this year." I'm like, holy hell! Like that position, I feel like would be impossible to find the right fit for. I don't know, or you got to pay them a lot. I don't know.
Tell you what, this past Tuesday I got a call from our longest client asking for an EA, right? And he's a lot like you, right? His attention span would probably shock even you. And he's running like 5 different businesses, big businesses, multi-million-dollar, like hundreds of million-dollar business. So if we get that working, I'll call you.
Yeah, like let me know because eventually, listen, Kayla can't do it forever. But so here's the other question because you guys are my husband and wife duo. So how do you balance relationship with? By the way, if you hear loud noises, my poor dog, she got surgery because she had like something on her back, so they had to like cut her open. She's got the cone of shame on, and she's like heavily sedated, so she's running into walls right now. But she's all right. But anyway, how do you balance relationship with work? Because it's something that it's newer to Kayla and and I think we're doing a pretty decent job. We got we have 2 check-ins we do every week. So one's relationship, one's work. We have date night scheduled every week. With us working we work out of the house. There is no separation of work. You know what I mean? Like it could be perfect example. And she posted something on Instagram the other day. And I got yelled at by one of my employees because I said, no, I'm gonna work on not working all the time. And she put me on blast because she put in her stories that it was like 10:30 at night. And I was outside talking to somebody that needed some help or whatever. I was working, and she's out there with me, and I had been up since 4:30 working. My Mondays are like crazy. So anyway, how do you guys separate? Do you separate, or how do you keep making sure that your relationship is growing while the business is growing too?
Wow. The most important thing
I
for
asked
us.
you questions. What's up? That's
You
what we
do.
do here.
But we just had this discussion a couple months ago, and we think one of the most important things in a relationship is that you like each other. We do like each other. We've been married 32 years.
Let's
without
go. That's big.
I blame her.
I blame her.
Yeah, he likes to say that. And then that's what keeps it going is that we like each other. I mean, we wouldn't have made it to 32 years if we didn't. So I think that's important to be able to work together in such a confined space. I mean, we do have separate offices, so that kind of helps. But I don't know that we really separate it. We talk about business pretty much all the time, but we do fun things together too. So we
Like, do you guys
just
like
like
travel a lot, or like, what do you
we
guys
don't
do for
travel
experiences?
a ton.
Not a lot locally. Just to reiterate something, you can't fake like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you can have conversation, everything else, but you can't like artificially like somebody, right? Not for long, anyway.
Mm.
Right? Somebody's gonna see through it. But yeah, we have a tendency to explore the local area pretty good, and kind of move out in concentric circles. We know pretty much everything from Merritt Island to Jacksonville to Ocala, and can only go east so far. But
Yeah.
Great.
And I'm always fascinated by, like, again, husband and wife duos when it comes to business as well, because again, I feel like, I don't know, like, for me, it's like a dream. Like, I trust her
mhm.
more than anybody. You know what I mean? So it's like, it was it was something that I think more than me, she was not concerned about it, but she was like, she was hesitant. Like, do we really want to have our kids? Like, part of the thing was obviously she worked with somebody else, she worked somewhere else, and she'd come home and she'd talk about work, and then she's like, well, what are we gonna do if like you're involved in all of my stories? Like, what would I? And then we kind of made it work. But the nice thing is, like, now it's like I wouldn't ever want her to work anywhere else, like, because it just fits so well. She gets me. I don't have to explain anything. And then also, she does come to my aid when I'm like, being my tyrant self, and she can explain me to people, and it kind of helps. But I'm always, like I said, I'm always curious about that. So the like component obviously is like the most important thing. So how do you keep liking somebody? I know that's a weird question, but like, again, is it just having more experiences together? Like, having separate hobbies? Like, do you guys do something outside of work that's just for you?
Well, I have photography, so I'm always out running chasing birds or something like that. But
Oh, that's cool.
and that's just not his thing, so he doesn't go along. I go do that myself. Um,
But whenever you come back and you've got all the shots and you're showing
yeah,
me,
yep,
we talk about them.
yeah,
I mean, we talk about, hey, here's why this was good. Here's how you might improve on this one. That kind of thing. How cool you saw a bobcat and her kittens. That kind of stuff. I mean,
right.
it's not that I want to be out there, in 100-degree weather chasing birds, but I can appreciate that she does it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, again, more and more, I just feel like it's so valuable. And I think, for us, we get stale when I'm the issue. Like, she'll go out and see her friends, and she has book club and things like this. And I'm the one that I have to, like, really be conscious about, again, going back to jiu-jitsu or doing otherwise. Even the books I read, they're all business related. Like, I'm like, I needed to go do something. But anyway, I think it's always valuable for me to kind of like ask, because also too, like, we have people that listen to the podcast, and people that we work with, that there's also a dynamic where one's an entrepreneur and one's not. I don't know why. Like, I feel like personally that's harder because they don't necessarily understand it. Like, I couldn't imagine if Kayla didn't understand entrepreneurship. Like, she comes from a world where, like, her mom always was working in entrepreneurship and those things, so she got it. But if I didn't have Kayla, that's when you get in those conversations of, hey, you're working too much. And if you're an entrepreneur, like, that to me is like, that's a red flag. Like, because to me it's like, that's not just a thing. Like, you work at a 9 to 5, that's great, but like, that's not for me. Like, I'd die inside, I think, if I did that.
Well, we can tell you from experience, it is hard. Neither one of us actually came from an entrepreneur background. But he's always had that bug. I did not. And so whenever we first were really starting to get going, we actually did have a major blow up because he kind of wanted me to pick up a part of the business that I didn't understand, and I really didn't have an interest in it. And that was a little bit rocky for a while. But once we really found each of our talents and each of our strengths, that's where we could come together and each one take what they were best at. Most talented
Can you
at.
tell them what you said in that argument?
Oh,
I
yeah,
hate
I
marketing.
hate marketing. That was my, That was the thing that blew it all up because he wanted me to pick up the marketing, and I was like, I hate this stuff.
Yeah, well,
But it was because I was trying to learn from books and things like that. So.
yeah, and marketing I feel like is in my humble opinion, it's learned. You can learn from books, but it's also by screwing up. Like that's how I
Yep.
learned marketing. Was I just tested things a lot. Like I do. Like perfect example is yesterday or the other day, I started experimenting with just promoting posts online. Like you know how you can get boost one. It's not a full out ad, but it's like I'm just gonna boost this one piece of content. So like I'll just take out $10 and I'll boost this and try this and try this. And it's just because that's what marketing is. It's like I'm gonna test this. I'm gonna screw this up and then see what happens. And sometimes you get lucky, you make some money, and you're like, okay, cool, let's do more of that. But yeah, it's so funny to hear that. And that's why I love asking those kind of questions because Kayla and I are at that stage now where it's like, where should we be in the business where we both can shine, and like, and more importantly for me, I want to be able to go, this is yours, and I don't have to ever look at it. Like that's like my goal. That's really my goal with like everybody that I work with is like, can I give you this and you just come to me and go, what do you think? And I go, whatever. Like even for us, and you guys know this, but when we're working with clients and we're helping them build their offers, like we did with you guys, like I was in that meeting and doing that. So now, which is, guys, it's really hard for me. Now I'm giving that to somebody else. And so I have to but what I found that I do better at, and this is what I mean by finding zone of genius, is the person you guys know. His name's Tim. And so he can see it better because he's doing the branding. So he can kind of do it. So I'm like, okay, cool, that's great. And then that way I can come in at a high level and go, oh, this is a little piece is missing. But because what we found was, and again, this is why I think it's so important to have have the right positions and those kind of things, is because what I found was the more I was in the weeds, the worse I was getting. And I was like, I wasn't getting creative with the offers we were building, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, am I losing my talent? Like, am I not good anymore? Like, what's happening? I couldn't but it's because I was too in it. Like, I was too close to it. Then as soon as I gave that to him, I was like, oh, I can see it all now. I can see all, and then we got creative again. So again, going back to for you guys, so on the leadership side, so we have market leader recruitment, which you all know. By the way, is going to probably be, you guys are. I have a sense that you guys are going to be really busy in the next year or so, because more and more people are doing this quiet quitting bullshit, and more people are deciding that they don't want to actually work for a living, and so finding good talent. I have a feeling people are going to pay a lot of money for that. So kudos to you guys for getting into the game at the right time. So talk to me a little bit about the market leader solutions. Like, where did that come from? Because I know the origin story of the recruitment side, which is funny because it's a lot like what I'm doing. It was an accident, just kind of happened. But on the market leader solution side, seemed more intentional. So talk to me a little bit about that. Like, how did that come about, and what do you guys do?
Yeah, that was actually how I first got started as a management consultant. And I tried to keep, I really tried to keep away from recruiting or being known as a recruiter because, well, at least in my travels, I've found that some people don't really regard many recruiters very highly because they're kind of shifty. Right? So I was like, because if I'm going to be advising a president, or a board of directors as to, a move that they should make, I have to have absolute trust established, right? Confidence. So it just kind of came out of that because our oldest client was actually the one about a year ago who came to us and said, "Hey, I know, you've been doing that thing for all these years, but I need some help recruiting. Can you help me?" All right, fine. So just kind of, and then whenever we did it, he said, "Man, this is what you should have been doing all along." Yeah. Whatever.
I don't know. I just have a sense that when you don't like something, you can I don't know. You can design it better. You can improve it. Like I don't like the way people market. Like I don't like the content that's out there, and so it's weird that we're doing what we're doing because how much I don't like content. And but because of that, I was like, let's just do something different. Everyone's doing this thing with personal branding, for example. That's why for us, we talk mostly about public personas. We stopped saying we're going to design personal brands for you. We started saying we're going to design public personas. Because here's the truth, I personally, I don't think my audience cares about, or they do. If they do, I don't really care that they do. But I don't, I don't want to go online and talk about my dog. Like, I want to help people. Like, I don't want to sit there and go, oh my god, like, you have people literally, which is, you guys aren't in this world, but I see content of people like, crying in their cars. Oh, I had such a hard day today. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I have no interest in it. But again, it gets millions of views, and so for me, this is the downside of this, right? And it's a double-edged sword. Is that for us, it's like, I'd rather serve people, help people, actually give really valuable stuff, and it's not going to be as entertaining. It's just not. Like, because I'm not going to, put a trending song on it. I'm not going to have you guys go dance and shit. But like, for the couple hundred people that see it, they're going to go, holy crap! Like, I would have paid for this.
Yeah.
And that's like kind of the goal. So I think, I don't know, there's something to not liking an industry and then designing something, right? I mean, look at Elon Musk at Tesla. He didn't like gas cars. He's like, these are stupid. So what did he do? Go make an electric car. I don't think he really liked cars that much before that. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Sure.
I don't really know him personally, but I would imagine.
You don't. So the path that I started down with Market Leader Solutions was actually built around the assessments that we use, and I've talked about those.
And I love that you guys are bringing that into recruitment too. But yeah, talk about. By the way, this is podcast. People don't know half of what we talk about, so go ahead and film it, because I mean, there's a really good chance that like people that catch us on the podcast, they're not looking at our content every day. Like, it's interesting to me, which is a side note, I know, but like how the people that listen to podcasts maybe don't have time, so to speak, to go and watch 30 seconds on our content, but they'll sit for an hour in the car and listen to us. You know what I mean? So anyway,
Sure.
talk to me a little bit about those assessments. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah. So this is where the propeller head in me comes out. I'm just kind of a little bit of a geek whenever it comes to it. But man, from the moment that that I really wrapped my arms around what they were, and I'll tell you actually a really fundamentally important story here. But I mean, I've seen 10,000 of these doggone things, right, in my career, which is a little bit kind of gives me a reason for having an opinion at times. But some of the things that we've seen happen from them. Holy smokes! I remember one day I was driving down the road. I get a call from my assistant. This was when I was working for somebody else. And said, hey, so-and-so is interviewing this candidate tomorrow and wants to talk to you. I said, okay, great. Can you read me? And I asked for some specific numbers from the assessment, right? So she read them to me. I'm like, okay, great. And then I called the client and I said, okay, listen, I know what the role is that you're looking for. Ask these two questions, right? And I went down through the first one. I said, chances are they're going to say this or that, right? Doesn't matter which one, don't care. Here's the next question. This is the one to pay attention to. And this is what I expect them to say based on what I've seen in the assessment, right? And I get a call 3 days later, Joseph, she said exactly what you said she would. Now, I mean, no, you just mean pretty close, right? No, like verbatim, right? So I kind of have a knack for understanding what's involved there. And, I think one of the conversations you and I had before about the CEO that my biggest client was hiring, and they're asking me to do a cold written review based on the assessment itself, right? So I don't see a resume, no LinkedIn profile, no backstory. Just tell me what's in there.
And you don't talk to them either, right?
Nope. No, that's actually funny too. So in any event, the one I said this person is manipulative and he's all about appearances, right? So that earned me a conference call with the board of directors to explain myself. And I came to find out that each one of them, board members being how they are, had to ask their own genius interview question, right? And I'm like, boys, when you did that, you willingly sacrificed your objectivity and you became subjective. It's right here in front of you and you can't see it, right? So they brought me out for the next round, which that was one of the ones I told you about how I demonstrated. Do you see? He's all about appearances. Anyway, the really hilarious part about that one is that about 2 weeks after they made the final hiring decision, this executive search firm, if I told you who they were, you'd probably heard of them. They actually sent a psychologist on site with each of the CEO candidates for 5 hours to interview them. And so she called me up and said, Joseph, how is it that you found out in 30 minutes what took me 5 hours? Yeah, funny
And
thing, I don't have.
did you guys create your own kind of assessment? Like, or is there a
No,
certain kind you use?
no, good question. There is. We use intermetrics. It's actually the big picture is actually a combination of 3 different assessments
Hmm.
by 3 different authors. So it tells us how people behave, why they behave that way, and what their inner talents are.
Do you ever
Right?
get like I don't know, like I had this I don't know why I have. Do you ever get any companies that like have an apprehensions towards like these assessments? Because like I know
Sure.
for me, so would you say that assessments are different than personality tests?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So maybe that's what it is because I conflate I think between the two. Like I think assessments are a personality test, but really because I hate personality tests, I think they're stupid. But I can see the value of the assessment. So like I guess for people that like have this apprehension towards assessments, like what would you say to that? Because again, I think some people are like, yeah, but what if people can change? People can do whatever. But I guess how do you combat that if somebody doesn't want to hire based on just an assessment?
Sure. Yeah, and I've had people push back, especially decision makers. This isn't me. Oh yeah, take that home to the missus, and have her
Yeah.
read it, right? And then tell me what she says, right? And every time it's like, yeah, that's you. Anyway, um, but I mean, if somebody's just predisposed to not want to work with assessments, then they've got some kind of a blind spot of their own,
Hmm.
um, a bias of their own, right? Because I can see somebody completely objectively, right? And it's not like I'm trying to, go out and hack somebody. Often, I'll take somebody. I'm actually coaching somebody right now who has a pretty fundamental flaw, right? Except we're turning it around now that he's aware of it. Let's use this, right? And let's make something even bigger because he's got a super talent at the same time. So let's go ahead and focus on the strength, make it stronger, and take that weakness and make it irrelevant.
Because it's also like I would imagine too that you're doing them a huge service by showcasing, hey, this is not going to be a good job for you too, right? Like I
Yep.
would imagine that like if I was applying for a job, whatever, and you did an assessment on me and told the CEO, hey, he's going to be like on to the next one all the time. He's going to be and
Yeah.
you coming back to me and saying, Raylan, you won't even like this job. Like that's where I think assessments
Exactly.
are really nice. Is that especially if you can kind of get through the emotional thing of I wanted the job but I can't get it because of a freaking assessment. If you can get past that and look at it and go, well, I guess I just wouldn't probably have enjoyed it anyway. I think that's kind of huge, and I think probably too for your candidates. Is that why do you feel like people come to you from the candidate side to work with you guys because again, like you're helping them out find kind of the right place for them?
I don't think that they know that up front. They discover it,
Yeah.
right, as we go, right? Because there's 3 questions that I want to have answered. Can they do the job, right? And I know it sounds silly, but that's not really often answered. People go, well, look at the resume. Well, look at their contacts. It doesn't tell me that they can do the job, right? The second question is how well are they going to do it? In other words, can you distinguish between an A player and a B player,
Mm.
right? Or a B plus or an A minus or whatever. I mean, we cut it down to stuff like that. But the third question is, are they going to stay because they fit in the culture and with the boss, right? That's actually where I more often advise a candidate. I just don't think that you're going to fit in well with the team. You've got all the talent to do this job, right? But I don't think you're going to fit in with the team. It was funny. There was this was 20 years ago. Had in Raleigh had 2 different home building clients, right? And anytime that they were looking for a builder, it would always come down to these 2 values, right? Opposing values. I won't tell you what they are. It doesn't matter. But if it was one way, they went to this company. If it was the other way, they went to that company. Just that simple, right?
Mm.
Because I knew that they were going to fit in the cultures, just based on those values that they had.
Yeah, and I think because even too, I don't know. I'm so. By the way, I'm hearing you talk about this. I'm so thankful that like I'm not trying to get a job just like
Yeah.
just the interview process of stuff and trying to find the right place. Like I said, I got lucky in that I found a place. So I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I got into sales, I did it by accident. Did I ever tell you that?
Huh.
So like I my first job ever actually was I was like 15, 16 years old, and I worked at a place called President Tuxedo. I was selling tuxes, and didn't really know I was selling. I just needed a job, and when I wasn't playing sports or whatever. And so I was a professional fighter, and I was working as a mechanic. By the way, I'm not a mechanic. I had a friend hook me up with a job. I was fixing city buses. By the way, if you're in the city of Phoenix, like I would highly recommend you not ride the bus, because if I fixed it, there's a really good chance it's not fixed.
No.
There's plenty of times I was like, I don't know if this goes here, but I'm gonna I'm just saying, like I wouldn't recommend it. So anyway, but I was a professional fighter, and people that don't know, like you don't make money. Like I think the most money I made as a fighter was like 10 grand in a year, and which is like nothing, right? Like, and so I needed a job. And so anyway, like things were getting tough, and I went and tried out for the Ultimate Fighter. They had a show at the time. I think it was on FX maybe or something like that. I don't remember.
Okay.
And so I went and did the tryout. I told my coach, I go, look, if I don't get this tryout, then I gotta start my life. Because at this point I'm like 24, something like that, and I'm like, I don't know how long I could sleep on couches and that kind of crap. And so anyway, long story short, I go to the tryout, and which is so funny is they said I was boring. Like I made it through. There's a section where you're hitting pads. There's a section where you're doing jiu-jitsu. But essentially they said like, he's boring as hell. He has no personality, which is like really funny. Because also I didn't drink and whatever. I was just there to compete. Anyway, so I have found this position, and it was like a admissions person for a for-profit education. I had no anything about for-profit. I didn't know anything about for-profit. But for-profit education is sales, because it's a trade school, and you're selling against nonprofit, right? That's essentially what you're doing. And so anyway, I go. There's I didn't know what enrollment was. I didn't know what admissions was. And there's 40 people, and it was a group interview. I didn't know. And I go there, and by the way, I had to go and I had to buy from TJ Maxx. I had to buy a button up because I didn't have a button up, and it didn't fit me like at all. And I go there, and out of just natural being a competitor, I was like, I'm gonna win. So like I just answer the questions, whatever. My mentor, who would end up being my boss, her name is Angie Bacino, pulled me aside and was like, hey, you did a really good job. I want you to come back for a second interview, which is me. I came back, and same thing. She kept calling me back, and I was like, this is crazy. Like at the time, anyway, for me, like entry level, it was like 45,000 a year, and I was like, that was more money. I was like, if I get this, I'm rich, baby. You know what I'm saying? And so anyway, literally, she asked me a question. I was honest with her at least, and she said, do you have any experience in this field? I said, look, I'll be honest with you. I did some gym sales before. I don't know nothing about enrollment. I don't know nothing about anything. But I do know this, is that if you put me in this position, I will be the best in the company. And I go ahead to the VP of sales at the time, and at the end, he goes, do you have any questions? By the way, that was the most stressful interview I've ever had in my life. Sweating.
Oh.
I was sweating. He had a 3-piece suit on. He's from Miami. Okay, just picture a sales guy from Miami, all right? He's a wonderful guy, though. And but literally, he's just asking me those questions, basically making me feel like an idiot, because I don't know anything about anything. He's like, what about this? What about this? I'm like, I got nothing. Literally, at one point in the interview, I said, like, I'm be honest with you, I don't know. Just if you train me up, I'll do my best. Like, I don't know what else to say. So anyway, I left that thing. I'm talking. I was wearing a blue shirt. I remember it from, again, TJ Maxx. Because every interview, I can't wear the same shirt, so I'd go buy another shirt.
Yeah.
Like, when I say I had pit, like, it just sweat. I was so nervous. And the lady ran after me. She goes, how do you feel like it went? And I was like, I don't think it went well. But the reason why I didn't think it went well is because at the end he goes, what do you want with this job? So I want to take your job. That's it. I'm going to come after you. Well, turns out that's exactly what he wanted to hear, because he actually flew out to Miami and trained me himself. Like the VP of sales was a huge company. And so anyway, I got lucky in that I got that job and I got promoted because I just wanted to be the best, whatever. If I had to go back though, I don't know, especially now, like I would imagine it's incredibly difficult to get a job today if you did any entrepreneurship. Because it's either I don't even know if I would hire somebody that tested out being an entrepreneur, because it's either if it starts working for them, they're going to leave, and I don't want that. But also, that it means that might mean that they failed. and they couldn't do it. I don't know if I want that either. So I don't know. It's just kind of weird. I don't know. Long story short, I feel like you guys would not find me a good job if I needed a job. I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah, it depends. I don't. Did Tim share with you what Amy talked to him about the other night with the DNA?
No.
How we actually took one part of our assessment and kind of put it in through an algorithm, right? Originally, it started out, it was called Sales Hunter DNA, right? And there are two must-have categories. In other words, right? I think what's the scale? Below average, average, above average, and then like knock it out of the park. And in these two categories, if you come in below average, in either one, don't even look at you, right?
Is that for like sales rep or like leadership?
Sales rep, right? The guys who can fool you really, really good,
Yeah.
right? So the two categories are going to interest you, I think. The first one is, are they resilient, right? Because if you're not resilient in sales, you ain't going to be in sales for very long.
And that's, by the way, when I remember earlier before we were recording, I was talking about that neuropeptide, the NPY. That's what they call the resilient gene, is your ability to forget, essentially.
Yeah, I get it. That is interesting. The second thing is, are they competitive, right? Because if they're not competitive, they won't be in your top tier on your sales team, right? And you would have passed that with flying colors.
Yeah, the problem is, and this is where, like, I probably knew inherently it was time to, like, get out of the industry anyway, was I have to be, and it benefits me in entrepreneurship, but I have to have something new every couple years. Like a whole new goal system, a whole new thing I'm selling, and or a whole new business. This is why, like, I have three. It's because any point, and this is where I think it's important. I think the moral of this podcast, honestly, this episode is going to be on self-awareness, because I'm self-aware enough to know at least that I have a certain amount of time to build a business, and then I'm out. So in that time, I have to get it to a point where it can bring in revenue enough to sustain, and then hire people to keep it going, or I have to be done. And it's something I had to, like, because the hard part for me, not to turn this into a therapy session for me, but the hard part for me was admitting to myself that I'm not a long-term grinder. It's weird. I can grind, but I have to have like 15 things I'm working on. I can't just have one thing. And that's why I mean, like, I'm fortunate that I found entrepreneurship, because I benefit from it. Especially now, though, and this is why I was so excited to talk to you today, was because on the recruitment side, that's the new skill I have to find. I could build an offer. I could start a business. I can get people into it. I can, even make a really, really good offer that gets people results. That's something that I'm obsessed about. But the next stage for my entrepreneur journey is recruitment. Can I find the right people? Can I get people that can do the job, do it well? And then here's where ego creeps in again. Can they even arguably do it better than me one day? And that's where it gets a little... Because, like, again, when I told you earlier, I gave Tim offer building. Like, hey, I want you to work on this. There was a small little, and it's still there, a small part of me, I won't lie to you guys, that was like, oh, but what if he does it better than me? That's real. I had to be okay with that. Be like, yep, that's what I want.
It's about the same token. He doesn't have the same drive that you have to be self-employed.
Yeah.
I mean, be honest with me. Can you work for anybody else ever again?
I can't.
Yeah, same here. Same here, right? But Tim can, and he's great. He's happy with that. I mean, that actually satisfies him to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
So awesome if he does it even better than you.
Well, that's the difference between, and last question, then we'll wrap this thing up. But is like, so for him, perfect example is like Tim. By the way, he'll love this. Like, man, they spent the whole episode talking about me. Is Tim? What we found with Tim was that he's an entrepreneur. He still has his own thing, right? He still does branding on his own. But what he enjoys, and this is the part that it matters the most, because there was a period of time where him and I were just experimenting. Could we work together? What would it look like? And he had a moment where he realized he was more of an entrepreneur. He loves taking, this is why he does really well with his other clients that are like, psychotherapists and like these kind of like minds, is he loves taking someone's vision and making it even bigger than they thought it was possible. That's why he does such a good job, with everybody, because he loves, how can I get you, to people to know, your thing. But it took him a minute to figure that out. Whereas I think one of the things in meeting Tim, what I realized was I don't think I ever want, and I'm sure there's positions that it's okay with it, but I don't want an employee. I want more entrepreneurs, people
Yep.
that look at the business as their own. That like I own this, because it's hard to find someone like you, obviously, and again, this is like ego talking, but for me, even when I did work for companies, I acted like it was my company.
Yep.
Like I behave. Even the first one I worked with, that was like a multi. It sold for like billions, or a billion. It was not a billion. 989 million, whatever. It was a billion. But anyway, but that was my company. If you asked me, that was mine.
Yep.
And at the time when it sold, I think I was a regional, so like I had maybe 12 locations out of the 30. No. I own all 30. That was my company, right? So I want more people like that, but. So I guess my last kind of question is like, is that valuable? Like, I don't know. Does that exist? I don't know, because it's like CEOs bounce around. It's very hard to find a CEO that stays with a company like a Bob Inger, right? Like that doesn't happen very often. Sales leaders, they're gone in 3 years, 4 years, something
Less.
like that. Less,
Yeah.
So how do you find? Does that exist anymore? In corporate, like the entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, I can tell you that anytime we've approached VP sales, who they turn over anywhere between 18 and 24 months, right? Anytime that we're
The
presenting
amount of
sales,
money too, that they're expensive and it takes a lot to onboard. Like,
I know. Here's the part that shocked us. So we went to them presenting Sales Hunter DNA, saying, hey, we can help build your sales team like you have never seen, right? And every time we would approach them, they started asking about what kind of opportunities we might have for them. What kind of mindset is already thinking about your next gig instead of this gig? I'm going to own this.
yeah,
I mean, that's how you and I would handle it,
yeah,
right? I'm going to own this. But they aren't thinking that way. It's very, very rare. It really is, really. I can tell you one thing, that whenever we are recruiting for our clients, if we recommend somebody, it's because we treat their business like it was our own.
Mm-hmm.
If I recommend this person, it's because I would personally hire them to work for me.
yeah.
And I think that's rare, man.
Yeah, listen, I don't know how you guys do it on the sales side. Like, I mean, that's the thing that's so interesting. And I think the sales side, I know that you guys do recruiting on all kinds of fronts in terms of like positions and stuff. But the sales side is the most interesting to me because I know it's so needed. And I don't know, I'd just be interested to see like how it shifts. Like, I wonder if the sales DNA of what makes someone good at sales is going to shift at all. Like,
I think it will.
because if it keeps going to like it is today, no wonder why like the good, and again, it's really sad to say, but it's like the top sales reps are probably going to leave and go somewhere else. And then you have the sales leadership that turns over every 18 months. So no wonder the sales culture never fully gets to a really, really good point in a lot of companies, because the leadership turns over so often. So I don't know how you fix that, but hopefully maybe with your guys' recruiting, maybe you can in a company. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that they would kind of stop promoting their top sales rep to sales manager.
And that's what I love that you talk about, is that your sales reps are not going to be your best managers. They're just not.
No, it's probably going to be the worst, right? And you just lost your top sales rep.
Yeah. So, okay, last question, I swear to God, and then I do have to go because I got to pick up my son. But now we talked about this. So how do you know? So again, example. I'm going to use me as an example once again. Is that I was a sales rep, entry level sales rep that moved to management, and then like climbed and eventually had a whole bunch of employees. It turned out okay with me, right? Like they got their money's worth. How do you know though? Like I don't know, because I didn't even know if I could do it. I just said I could do it, and I took the job, and then I figured it out because I really, really enjoy. I think, well, for me, it was kind of a cheat code. I think because I think the reason why the two people that promoted me, I coached. Like I was an athlete, so I coached wrestling, and so I looked at people as athletes. Like I'm going to make you a better salesperson. So I think honestly, I think they promoted me not for my leadership, but for my coaching ability. So, but I guess how do you know if that sales rep could be a manager? Like, and I guess the other question too would be like, is a good sales manager probably like a mediocre, like a B player on the sales team? Like, I don't know. How do you figure that out?
Yes.
Yes. So the sales rep is probably like a B player that can turn into a really good manager.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, okay, I took a team of 30 sales reps, and we doubled sales in 7 months, right? Shot us from fifth place out of 6 regions into first,
Uh-huh.
right? I was an okay sales rep, right? But my ability to see, and I think that's that gene that exists in the two of us, right? First of all, taking extreme ownership
Yeah.
of what I'm doing, right? And second, having that perspective of, yeah, I'm going to make everybody around me better for having worked with me.
Yeah, because I think, because also for us, we do like sales consulting with teams and stuff, and we took a very interesting approach, and that's just why like we're going to be relaunching it here beginning of the year. Obviously, I was working on other stuff, so it kind of. But I also, speaking of partners, I had to find somebody that could kind of run it while I was hopping between all these other things. Anyway, the thing that I did differently and it worked out was that I started working on people's mindset more than their sales technique.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a client right now that we just did. They just closed out. They're called starts, but the sprint. Let's just call it. They closed out their budget, and we just did like 1.2 million dollars. Which before I was working with them, they were averaging like 300,000 just for
Wow.
reference. Okay, and so the owner, or not the owner, but like the person that I work with mostly, she was like, okay, what are you doing differently? I literally just talk about their mindset every week. They can sell. They know how to sell. Oh, and not as much. Sales is sales. Okay, like
Right.
we do visit every time we turn over. We kind of go back to the drawing board and we go over basics of like phone call to like in person, and we go through all the basics. Majority though, like one of the homework assignments I gave them after one meeting was, I want you to tell me your brand messaging. I want you to tell me what you want to be known for, like in your life, your friends, your clients, your husband,
Yeah.
your wife. I want you to tell me your brand message. And so when they came back, we talked about that. And then the next question was, are you living up to that? Are you taking action? Are you reading at home? What do you do when you go home? Do you turn on the TV, or are you trying to improve yourself? Because what I found, and this is kind of like a little spin, I guess, on how we train teams, is if I can't trust you to grow yourself, how can I trust you to grow my business? Like, you're just not. Like, the only reason why I think did decently well in sales is just my guess, and it was an experiment. Honestly, it's working, but it was just an experiment. Was because I worked my ass off at work, but then I was reading. I was trying new things. Like every time I came to, because I got bored. Sale. If you have the same, especially if you're good. And what we did anyway, I would dial. This is crazy to some people that are not coming from sales, but I would dial 200 dials a day, every day. On average, I probably get 20 people on the phone, and then on average of those 20, 10 to 12 maybe on a good day would set up an appointment, and then on average every day I'd meet with 5 people, and of those 5, 3 would close, 4 would close. The reason why they would close so high also is because I hate follow up. So if I don't close you on the first phone call, like I'm not gonna follow up. I hate follow up. I hate it. That's why
Yeah.
I've had it. I closed at like a 60% close rate because again, like I was like, if I don't close you now, I'm not gonna call you. Anyway, though, the thing that made me good though was because I was constantly reading books because I was bored. So I'd try new things. Oh, I just read this new mindset thing, and so let me try this out, or let me try this out. And so anyway, the only reason why I'm able to like do on the consulting side we do so well is because all I do is talk about the mindset. I don't even teach
Yeah.
technique because it is what it is, and I get bored. I don't know how many times you can tell somebody, hey, when you start the phone conversation, don't do this, don't say this. Hey, you should try this. Like it gets boring, and especially too, I used to in my old life ran a call center. Like that was part of my responsibilities. We had about 60 seats or so, something like that. And you know how many freaking phone calls I've listened to in my life? Same as you probably, right?
Yeah.
I've listened to I don't, nope, no thank you. Anyway, listen, I know this majority of this episode is you listening to me and helping me in my woes. You guys are my therapist. I'll send you guys a bill. But thank you guys, not a bill. I'll pay you guys an invoice for my therapy session. Appreciate you guys joining the podcast today. Do you have anything final you want to touch on before we jump out of here? And the link in the description of the podcast, by the way, I'm going to have everybody check you guys out. Like I know for certain I'm sending it to one of my friends, Brian Babbage. If you're listening, this episode is for you because I know that he he runs a pretty substantially big sales team, and I know he needs people. So this episode was for him. But anyway, anything that finally you guys want to leave off on?
Just very quickly, one of the things that you said before, one of the things about our assessments is they're so cool about self-awareness. We use that in our relationship, and that's part of what makes us so great together is the self-awareness that we got from our assessment. Long story, we'll have to get into that sometime, but they're great for that, even if it's not for recruiting, just becoming self-aware.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that too on the website we have your assessment, and then I think too once we the recruiting website will be up soon, and we'll probably put the similar assessment up there too. So make sure if you're listening to the podcast, go check out marketleadersolutions.com, and you can learn more information about that. And listen, if you're looking for people, Amy and Joseph is the place to go. Thank you guys. Appreciate you.